All right, guys, welcome to episode number 58 of the Conquer Me podcast. I'm so excited, like giddy excited today to have my guest, Jenn Broxterman, with us. Jenn has become a friend of mine. We are in we share a mastermind group together, and so that's where we met. And recently we've gone through some of her courses and things that we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about nutrition today. But before we get in, a little bit about Jenn. So Jenn is a registered dietitian. She is the owner of Prosper Nutrition and also NutritionRX. Jenn has written for some really, really cool nutrition authorities in the space of nutrition, like Precision Nutrition. She's been a high-level athlete and just an awesome person, and I just can't wait to jam about nutrition and even some her experience with cancer. I think you guys are really going to walk away with some awesome, awesome value today. So, Jenn, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You got it. So, Jenn, I want to talk about cancer, right? That's like the main thing I want to jam on because I think I'm seeing this more and more and more, and I'm seeing it younger and younger. And you had an
Mm.
incredible experience with this, but I want to start, like, I don't want to bust right into that. Let's start with some nutrition. I noticed on your Facebook page that you had it as your mission to
Mhm.
empower people. What was it? Empower people to have a better or a happy and
Happy and healthy.
healthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
So tell me how you do that.
Well, I'm gonna weave in some personal history and then what I've been doing as my life's work as a nutrition coach.
Awesome.
So back in my teenage years, I was, one of those girls that was around the body image era of like only skinny is pretty. And
Right.
so you can own, especially if you're an athlete, young female, and you're
Yep.
building muscle, the only way to keep your body extremely small is to not eat a lot of food. And
Mm,
that was my first taste of like what healthy nutrition I thought at the time was supposed to look like. And after doing a lot of work and going into some eating disorder recovery and just
mm,
really embracing fitness for the joy of moving your body, nutrition because it feels so good to be nourished. What really struck on me is that body image is not tied to your weight or your shape. It's much more tied to your internal thoughts and how well you love and care for yourself. And so as I started to look at food and exercise in a whole new light, like I used to run a half marathon just to burn enough calories in a day to be allowed to earn my food. Like
mm.
that's not a healthy relationship with food or exercise.
But how common is it?
Very common, extremely common.
Yeah.
And so I had this own personal, flip of a switch in my brain, which was like, no, like eat food, especially nourishing food, because you just love how much energy you get. And I don't really label foods as bad, but when I do have those, less nutritious foods by societal standards, in my mind, I've reframed them as joyful experiences.
Mm,
So it's not something I'm binging on. I'm not cheating. It's like, no, I wanted to bake chocolate chip cookies with my niece. And I
yep.
did want to have two or three warm, ooey gooey chocolate chip cookies with a cup of tea and watch a Christmas movie with her. That was a joyful experience with food.
Good.
And the moment there's this like really fascinating scientific concept for anyone who's maybe struggling with restriction. And the scientific concept that really broke me free is called CDR, and that stands for cognitive dietary restraint. So
Mm,
the research shows that people who live with cognitive dietary restraint, whether it is truly imposed, like they follow the rules in their head, or it's just the rules are there, but they feel like they constantly break the rules,
mm.
their body starts to distrust them around food and it believes a famine is coming. Because if you're always worried about food scarcity and not enough and that you can't have it, you're actually setting yourself up to engage in binge eating behaviors
Mm.
because your brain is like binge eating is protecting you from this famine. You must seem to live in a world where there's a lot of famine.
Yep.
And so what was so freeing was A, understanding the idea of cognitive dietary restraint, but two, actually just freeing myself from the chains, the prison chains of that. And I was like, oh, all foods fit. But I'm making the voluntary choice that I choose foods that are uplifting and nourishing and give me energy. They taste well, they keep me satisfied.
Mm.
I'm choosing foods for the value of what I'll get from them. But then sometimes that value is just a joy experience. And what's amazing is it took all that pull and all that binging away because
Mm.
I always knew I could have another cookie. I always knew I could have a bowl of chips. I always knew I could
Mm.
get the ice cream cone in the summer. And everything just got quiet mentally. And so that's where my mission to make people have a happy and healthy relationship with food and exercise, it really came from being very unhappy when it was very controlled to extremely joyful when it was relaxed but supported, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
it makes total sense. That's so good.
Yeah,
So I see this obviously a lot, and it's really a very common trip up for most people is that they have to earn their calories, right? And that
right,
if they're eating too much, then they have to do more, and it's this whole like unhealthy thing back and forth. And the problem is you can never do enough. Eventually, you get to the point of diminishing returns where
right.
you're like, I want to enjoy the food, I'll just go work out more. Well, now you're enjoying those foods at a very high level because you think you can work it off, and now you're running into injury and rubbing against some other
Yep.
issues. So that's so good. There's I think 4 or 5 that I can identify really big trip ups that people
Mhm.
have when it comes to their relationship with food based on my experience in coaching, and that is one of the biggest ones. What are some
Yeah.
others that you see?
Oh gosh, the whole I need to be perfect through the week and then the
Mm,
weekend doesn't count, right? You see the weekday dieting, weekend, throw your hands up. And I always have a little metaphor for that group. It's like being a carpenter who is building his or her dream house. Every Monday he shows up, he puts in the 8 hour day. On Friday, the house has made progress. And then he like douses it in gasoline and lights a match and then just walks away and
yep.
lets the house burn to a char over the weekend.
Mm,
And then Monday he has to come back and do the whole let's begin again. So I would say that is a major trip up that I see is I just have to be good those 5 days and then whatever, the weekend doesn't count.
yeah.
The other really big trip up I'd say I see most common is the pressure of perfect or nothing. Like people
Mm,
tend to live in extremes. And so we all know those clients who are like, well, life's a little bit too crazy right now. But after the holidays, after my in laws aren't living with me for the next week or so, once work settles down, when the kids get back to school, then the conditions are perfect for me to focus on this. Guess what? Every single meal and snack is a little vote of
mm,
how your body's going to look and feel. So there's no better times to make your vote because unfortunately food we're forced to vote every single day for the most part.
yep.
So can I drop a little coaching metaphor for the audience if
Yeah,
this isn't a
yeah,
big
bring it.
trip
This is
up?
what this is about. Absolutely.
All right. So my metaphor for those perfectionistic people is I call it the health spending account. I want you to mentally picture a piggy bank. And what we can do with our piggy bank is we can add deposits that are positive for us. And sometimes we're going to make withdrawals, just like a real bank account. As you get a paycheck, your money goes into your bank account. Sometimes money's going to come out of your bank account. Now, we're going to have some known expenses like rent or mortgage, food, insurance, electricity. And then we're going to have some discretionary spending, right? Maybe you order something on Amazon, maybe you upgrade your podcast tech, maybe you want to take a significant other out for a really nice date night, maybe you have an unexpected car repair. So wealthy people understand that deductions will happen, but what they just do is they always try to live within their means and they
Mm,
contribute a little bit faster than they withdraw. And if you can keep that consistency of putting in more positives then you subtract, your health account grows. Now, here's the cool thing about the piggy bank is coins have different values, right? There's nickels, there's dimes, there's 25 cents. You could put in a $5 bill, a $20 bill, but the same 25 cents is the same whether it's in a dollar bill or for 25 cents. So every ounce of goodness counts.
mm,
So some days I might not have 50 bucks to throw in my health account, but I could have a glass of water as soon as I get up. Cool, that's 50 cents. Okay, I didn't make it to the gym today, but could I go for a walk around the block? Yeah. Or maybe that's not possible because the weather's terrible. Maybe I go up and down the stairs a couple extra times and throw in some music and dance around in my house to a song. So, what's cool is when you get people to look at it like a piggy bank, I'm like, okay, like give me less than 20 bucks. What would a $5 contribution today look like? Give me
deposit.
25 cents. What would
Love
a
it.
25? They're like, okay, I can take 3 deep breaths when I want to scream at my family members. I'm like, awesome. Self management, self
Yep.
stress regulation. And now they see they don't always have to make a $500 all perfect deposit. And that is my favorite way to break my all or nothing. And then for those that feel very guilty, because there's a lot of people who have so much guilt and shame over bad foods. I'm like, do you feel bad when spend $50 for something on Amazon? And then, well, sometimes I'm like, but imagine if you spent $50 on Amazon and then you're like, screw it. And all of a sudden you drain $5,000 from your bank account. Because if you're going to be bad, you're going to be real bad with your savings. And they're like,
All the
yeah,
way.
I would
Yeah.
never do that. I was like, but why do you do that with food? Like, okay, you had the Christmas cookie in the break room at work.
Mhm.
Whatever, you made a deduction. Don't go blow $5,000 when you get home and swear off that the rest of your day sucks. And they're like, yeah, I wouldn't do that with money. And I'm like, do you do that with food? They're like, all the time. So
Yeah.
the money framework often really disrupts the way people think about food. I love that game for people that are very all or nothing.
So it sounds like you figured out a way to really speak to a lot of the limiting beliefs and hangups that
Yeah.
people have mentally with kind of fun analogies, right?
Oh
Do you
yeah.
feel like that separated you from your ability to keep people engaged with nutrition coaching? Because listen, this is something that everyone wants. When it comes
Mhm.
to coaching, it's like, just tell me what to eat. Give me the magic meal
Right.
plan. Sprinkle the
Right.
fairy dust on it so that it, whatever. But it's really, I mean, it's challenging. You have to learn new habits. You have to change your paradigms about food. You have to rearrange your life and your environment. It takes work, right, to do it and find something that's sustainable. And so what I've found, and I've gotten much better over the years and networking with people like you and learning from people, but you really have to take a different approach. It's not about giving people information, right? The people,
Right.
you can give them how many macros and when to time your protein and how to do all the things, literally the script, but there's so many mental things that are blocking us from sticking to that. So have you found that using these metaphors really helps them with a mental makeover so that they can engage longer?
Oh my goodness, yes. And do I have the metaphor up my sleeve to highlight that example?
All
Okay, I'm very
right.
prepared.
Exhibit
So
A.
one, I use this a lot actually on sales calls when people are inquiring about my service. But if you're also someone that thinks just hire a coach and give me the magic meal plan, I think this will really resonate with the audience too.
Yep.
You know the meme of like what people think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what
Yeah,
society
yeah.
thinks that I think I do. This societal meme is that like people think they hire nutrition coaches to give them meal plans, macro
Hmm.
targets, and to hold them accountable to numbers. Why food became this mathematical equation is a little bit weird to me.
Yep.
What real nutrition coaching is we are teaching skills. So the metaphor I want to give is a high level coach for some type of an athlete. Now, pick the sport, insert the sport of your area. Maybe it's soccer, maybe it's football, maybe it's hockey, maybe it's basketball, maybe it's fencing. I don't know. But like I'll use soccer, football with the world, international world
Right.
calls football, what us North Americans call soccer. Let's use soccer.
Yep.
It would be so weird if you were like, Jen, I want to make the varsity soccer team for college or university this fall. I'm like, tried a little bit on my own. I watched some YouTube videos, but I'm
Mm.
struggling. And you're like, cool, I'm a coach. I know how to get people all the way to their goal. Option A would be, here's the plan. I've studied high-level soccer players. This is exactly what they do with their feet on the game, on the pitch. They run 3 steps to the left, they jump in the air to head the ball, they swing their right foot, then they pass with their left, then they deke over here, and then the ball's going to be in the net. The person would kind of look at me like, huh?
Mm.
Instead, Coach B is like, what we're going to do is you're going to come to practice that I'm going to help supervise. And I'm going to set up cones and pylons, and we're going to practice just the next set of skills you need. So at first, we're going to get you in shape. We're going to do running and conditioning drills, get you running all over the soccer field. Next, we're going to set up some dribbling stations where you're going to practice dribbling foot to foot, left to right.
Mm.
Then we're going to practice change of direction dribbling drills where you go one way and then you change and you go backwards. Next, we're going to work on your ability to do throw ins. Then we're going to piece in corner kicks and team position play.
Mm.
Then we're going to do some scrimmaging so you get to practice it. And every week, it's not one practice and you're fixed. You're going to keep coming back with me over a series of months, if not a full year. And every time I'm going to check in on how are you feeling? What's your energy? Do you have any injuries and limitations? And then I'm going to set up the field for you so you can go to work and practice those next set of skills so that you have the muscle memory. So when I go throw you into tryouts and a scrimmage or a real game, you don't need the plan anymore that I've written you. Your
Mm,
body and decision making has everything you need inside of you to carry on your own. And to me, that's what nutrition coaching all is about. Is it's looking at their skill level, finding the next right skill and drill so they can get in reps of practice, reinforcing those reps in practice with scrimmages and difficult situations and holiday meals and stuff like that. It's never been give them the plan, do this with your feet on the soccer field. And
mm.
they're like, oh, and they're like, so and then they're like, and then they're like, oh, I get why I'm not signing up for a meal plan. Because I was like, here's how coaching is going to go if I give you a meal plan. I'm going to give it to you or a macro target, and then I'm going to have to parole officer coach you. So the police officer coaching is come in for your parole officer meeting. What went well? Where are you struggling?
Yeah.
What do you want to focus on next? Okay, here's your plan again. What went well? Like you can do it cheerleader, like, yay,
Yeah.
what went well? Bright
Right.
spot. Where are you struggling? What are you doing next? Such a boring
Mm,
conversation.
mm.
And I've noticed the coaches I've worked with who come to my Prosper program and they're like, my coaches are really smart. They have a lot of certifications. We can't keep people past 3 months. And I was like, well, what do you talk about? Well, we have a curriculum. We go through this. And we always ask them, what went well? Where are you struggling? Here's what you're going to focus on.
You're calling me out.
It's role officer coaching.
Yeah.
So, but if you notice the soccer metaphor of, okay, I'm still checking in, like what's going well. Let's reinforce some old habits. Let's add some new things. And then the secret element, my secret sauce, is I play a lot of games.
Yeah.
Because again, if I was an athlete and I only went to practice and I never got games, I never got competition, that makes all that practice so
Mm,
much fun. So I take off
good.
pressure and I allow people to test things out with games. And there's just experiments. There's no perfect right or wrong.
That's so good. I love it. So,
Yeah.
that is my method of coaching, by the way. Like that's exactly how I've done it for years.
Hmm.
And I think I've gotten better at setting the proper expectations because that
Right.
framework can still work very well if the right
Yes.
expectations are there and you understand that like, hey, we don't do the plan. We've never given meal plans. We never
Mhm.
like it's all habit based stuff, right? But to your point, I think similar to working out, if it's entertaining, people
Yes.
tend to stick around long enough to adopt the skills that they need to be successful long term, right? And
You
that's
got
the issue is most of us come in with the expectation that this is going to be a quick fix. And hey, I'm
right.
just going to get the plan and I'm going to go shop and I'm going to get the shopping list and I'm going to buy all the
Mhm.
things and I'm going to eat them and all my problems are going to go away. But I think you nailed it. It's a skill. It's a skill. It's a skill, and it's as big a skill of anything else, right? Like it
Right.
takes time. You've got to be clumsy for a while. You've got to see what
Mhm.
works. And I think the key to all of this is it's different person to person.
Yes. You nailed it.
So, with that being said, there's a lot of information and advice and different diets and things that we should be doing. I mean, should I be doing paleo? Should I be doing keto? Should I be doing carnivore? I mean, there's professionals on every end saying that's the best diet. Which one should I
Yeah.
be doing? What's the perfect diet?
You should run away from anyone that says there's a perfect diet
Yes.
because, okay, another metaphor. Think of it like a really big mountain. There are many paths up the mountain to that person's top. So a great coach always starts with assessment. Where are you? Where have you been in your past? Where are you looking to go in your future? You
Mm,
can't give them a map if you don't even start with assessment. It's like taking an athlete and putting them through Murph, the workout, the CrossFit
mm,
workout, the hero one, and you haven't even asked if they have any injuries, how recently they've been training. You can't just throw someone into nutrition if you don't assess. So
that's good.
then, by asking a lot of questions and really getting to understand that person, the next thing I start to do is I always like to actually explain the metaphor of my coaching role. We are on this really incredible road trip together. This end point, which is ultimately never an end, we're on a journey, but this place where you're especially going to see the results of what you've hired me to help you with is whatever you're going to define makes you feel happy, healthy, like you're really proud of how what you're eating,
Mm,
eating habits and body composition looks like. But there's many right ways of what happy, healthy looks like. It's not my definition for me that I'm going to impose on you.
right.
I have clients that are like, I don't care what I weigh. Like, in fact, I've come from a lot of disordered eating. I don't ever want to know my weight. Don't ever put
Mm,
me on an in-body scanner. No problem. Let's figure out what in control and confident and those skills are there, right? So I'm first assessing of like, what is their top of the mountain? Then I have to be like, are we at base camp? Have they already kind of driven up part of the mountain? Do
Mm,
they want to go up the side of the mountain that has meat on it? Do they want to go up this on the
good.
side of the mountain that has more plants on it? Do they want to go really, really fast? Do they want to go more steady? Do they
Love
need to crawl along because they're in a tough season of life and they just don't want to backslide?
it. Mm,
All of that is okay. The greener coaches take it personally when the client isn't going at the speed and the direction that they want.
right.
Good coaches know is that they're in the passenger seat, they're holding the map, they are the road trip buddy, keeping them inspired, entertained, good conversation. Doesn't mean you're not doing anything, but they get to set the speed, the rate, the side of the
Yep.
mountain. And then my job is to meet them exactly where they're at. If they want to go more plant-based, I don't want to impose my view of why I eat meat and why they shouldn't. I'm going to go, let me find you some really high protein vegan breakfast ideas. Let's mix up your snacks so you don't get in a rut and get nutritional deficiencies. Ah, you want to go a little bit more paleo and you're staying away from these carbs. Well, let's just make sure your carbohydrate needs are being met for your fitness
Mm,
goals, but let's work within paleo friendly options. Maybe you do suspect that the skin itchiness is connected to something autoimmune. Let's figure out if there's a food irritant and I can help you take that out and you're going to feel a lot better. So I am Switzerland when it comes to food, in that my job is to not have my bias get barfed all over them.
yep.
It is to really listen and assess what they want, what they need, where they want to go. And then my job is to just have this huge basket of tools to go,
Mm,
I have something I'm going to help you. I've got another game I can use for that. Here's some food suggestions to eat in this particular way. And so I am just this really skilled contractor that's not like I only build log cabins. No, like I
mm,
can build you a tiny house, I could build you a log cabin, I can build you a mansion, I could build you a beach home. Like, what's your dream house? I got the tools, I'll get you there. And I think that is the mark of a really good coach, where a lower quality coach is like, I got really good at building tiny homes.
yep.
Everyone should live in a tiny home. And it's like, well, maybe they have 8 kids and a tiny home isn't the best house for them,
So
right?
good. Kind of to your point, Jen, is, if we try to give people our way, it's like our way or no way because that works for us, right? Which is
Mhm.
very different than everyone else. Um, it's got to be something, my experience has been, that is already closely related to what they're already doing.
Right.
And then we slowly start to make changes in the right direction, as opposed to saying, "Hey, we have this totally different philosophy that doesn't align at all with what you're currently doing. Let me
Right.
teach you that." And then
Right.
it's like such a gap between where they're at and where they need to go that it's not even feasible. They look at it and they go, "Oh my gosh, I could never. I've made all these mistakes, right?" So I get it, but what I love about your program, and I want to speak to that a little bit because obviously my team and I just got finished going through Prosper Nutrition, which, for those of you guys that don't know, it's an amazing course that was built specifically to help wellness professionals, gym owners, coaches to level up in the area of nutrition coaching. And I can tell you, I've been coaching for a long time and I've had some moderate success at this. I was totally blown away with the way that you go about it. And so I do want to say this, and I want to kind of give you some specifics, but to plug you a little bit, if you're a gym owner listening to this and you're in the position that I was in, which is I have some great coaches. They have the heart for the game. They love being into fitness. They really want to help people, but they just didn't quite have the tools or the experience to really deliver a nutrition experience that I would be satisfied with, right? For my clients, my gym. So what that meant is I was always the one having to deliver that experience, which, hey, I love coaching, but if you own a gym, you know that there's a lot of things to be done. And you get to a point where maybe that's not an option anymore, or maybe you're looking to do other things, and whatever the case is. And so I said, all right, I've got these great coaches. I want to help them level up. What can I do? I was introduced to Jen and her program. And my first, I was a little reluctant because I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get coaches excited about this program, right? Like, are they really going to engage and see this as useful? But I decided to make the investment and they went through it. And I can tell you, every single coach has come away with some major, major shifts and even excitement about the way that they're coaching. There was freedom where in their mind, they thought they had to coach one way, right? Which some of them was the old traditional, we're going to give you macros and we're going to count your calories and we're going to tell you all the things, right? They walked away going like, no, 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 this is not it at all. This is about helping them slowly change their perspectives and their approach to food and how they eat and to build different habits. And then there's all these super great, obviously metaphors. You've seen, she's already hit us with like 10 of those amazing ones. You didn't say the toothbrush one or the iceberg one, or I won't give away all your secrets, but yeah, so like all these great metaphors that are talking points that allow them to coach the same points and the same topics just with different language and different ways that land, right? You can tell someone, hey, listen, if you mess up on your diet and you get off plan, it's like brushing your teeth, right? Like, would you just stop brushing your teeth? This is one of her things, by the way, guys. Would you just stop brushing
Take
your
it.
teeth forever and just go, hey, I'll start again in January? Well, of course not. You would just brush your teeth that night. You would pick right back up where you left off. So we're telling clients this already, but when you sprinkle in metaphors and games, it is
Mhm.
a total game changer. So I just want to say, like, I've looked at a lot of courses. I've been around a lot of pretty high level, nutrition people and people in this space, and you have nailed it with this. So if you guys are considering leveling up your nutrition, which, listen, if we're a coach and we're running a gym and we're not giving our clients access to nutrition coaching, like, what are we even doing? I mean, don't we know that this is a really important piece of the puzzle? And we're probably doing our clients a disservice if we're not delivering some form of nutrition coaching service. But then also, let's do it right. And Jen, you've done a great job of helping, I know, me and my team do it right. Again, I learned a ton from you. I felt like I had a pretty good handle on this, but there were so many corrections and kind of tweaks that I've made even to my most recent program based on your course. So thank you for that.
Oh my goodness, that is just so sweet of you to say. My biggest dream when I started Prosper, because I knew this magical way of coaching we were doing very quietly in our CrossFit gym
Mm,
was just blowing up. Like we
yep.
had 4-month wait list, more clients than I knew what to do with. I expanded my team to 8 coaches and we still couldn't keep up with the demand. And then the stroke of luck, unluck, the silver lining of the pandemic
Yep.
is other gyms were really struggling
Mm,
because we were so locked down in Canada and they were like, can my coaches just go through your in-house training program? Because we need to ramp up our nutrition in the pandemic. And they knew, like, I'm an
mm,
obsessive person about the customer experience and quality.
yep.
And I was like, similar to you, I was like, I'm a really good coach, but I had people working for me that were a bit more inconsistent. And I was like, I want to make sure that every client gets a 10 out of 10. So I hopped on video and I started to
Mm,
record these metaphors, these games, these ways I would teach the material so that it was fun and playful, but really sticky and memorable. And I
yep.
knew it worked with my clients because I'd like tested it for 10 years. And so other gyms were like, can we just go through like we're gonna work for you, but bring it back to our gym? And so it
I love
became
it.
this accidental business where I was just so obsessed with making sure my team could represent me in a way I felt proud and that the clients would get results. And I think now, like a gym owner like you being able to say that really fulfills the mission. Because I know my husband was a gym owner, you guys wear 100 million
Mm,
hats
yep.
from janitor to like the power goes out to customer service to sales to training the coaches. You only have so many hours in a day. So I thought if I could systemize training so that way you knew your team could come out, everyone gets quality assurance, a same top tier intensive program. But
Yep.
again, how long did it take? Like I think the whole course is 18 hours. I normally tell a gym owner, give me 1 quarter, like pick a quarter of your year, Q1, Q2,
Yep.
Q3, or Q4. If you can focus on nutrition for 1 quarter, I'll do the training. You're going to come out with a nutrition program for life. Everything you need to run it. Does that feel
Oh,
about how much time
yeah,
exactly it
absolutely.
was?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
So again, we've been through a lot of courses, and I think there was enough content there to give us what we need, but not a
Mhm.
lot of extra fluff. So some of the other things
Yeah.
we've done in the past, it was a lot of just like, okay, this really isn't that helpful, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's kind of adding modules to the course, But yeah,
Right.
that's exactly what happened. I mean, we walked away with tons of resources, things that we didn't have in place already, a really well done structure for how to run people through this.
Yeah.
And I've been able to add even some of my things from my previous program to what you're already doing. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So yes, we're extremely happy with that. Appreciate the work that you put into that. And I'm glad you've decided to fill that gap because it's a huge gap in the fitness space. I mean, gyms are doing their best,
Hmm.
but not a lot of gyms can have a registered dietitian.
Yep.
They're kind of self-taught. They have
Right.
gone through a very short certification, nutrition coaching certification, or whatever. And there's value to all of that. Where whatever
Totally.
course you might go through is great, but we just haven't seen anything that gave the tools that Prosper gave us. So yeah,
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a little GM, general contractor, and I just wanted to be like, here's my whole belt. So you get
yep,
the hammer, the level, the saw, the screwdriver, the power tools. Now, when a client's like, please build me this dream house, you're like, we got it. We went to
yep,
contractor school as nutrition coaches. We now know how to build more than just the home we live in and the home we like. And now it's like this fun flexibility as a coach to be like, cool, I can help you do that. Yes.
yes,
It's just it's
yes.
a very freeing, I think, on the coach's side too, because you're not like forced to coach the same way person to person forever.
Yep, absolutely. I love it. You know,
Do it.
you're
Oh gosh, there's so many. Can I go broader than just nutrition? Because I
yeah,
think mindset work, even if it's not on the topic of nutrition, trickles back down into what I do as a
100%.
nutrition coach. So there was a few really big pivot points. Some are really well known, and I'm going to drop a name that's probably not as well known. So the well known one I did is I went to Tony Robbins' Business Mastery,
Mm,
and at the time it was like a big investment. I
yeah,
think it was about $15,000 for the week experience, and I was like, oh, this is like university tuition. Like this is
yeah.
like a big deal for a week of training. And what I gained as a business owner, not only were like deeper business skills, but that was the first time I really looked at my self-talk as a business owner.
Mm,
And I would argue that a lot of small business owners are just flying by the seat of their pants,
mm,
just treading water,
yep.
going to whatever next fire they have to deal with. And that was the first inflection point where I went from being reactive to proactive. And he planted, and I'm sure he's doing some mind control stuff. Like, for sure, that's probably happening
Right.
with Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
But the word I walked out of business mastery with was the word unstoppable.
Mm,
And we teased a bit earlier in this episode that I had a really serious cancer scare.
yep.
I got diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer a week after my 34th birthday. I mean, I was at high level CrossFit regionals, eating really well as a dietitian. I did not look like a cancer patient, but genetically it's in my family and the gene expressed itself, and it was really bad. It was 5 years of bringing symptoms forward that no one took seriously. And
Mm,
the moment I got the confirmation of my cancer diagnosis, the word I went to was unstoppable. I was like, I'm unstoppable. Like, I will find a way to get through this. And I'm going to lean in my mindset. I'm going to lean in my community, my friends, my family, my gym
yep.
members, people near and far. And like, I'll figure this out. I have it in me. And
Mm,
I'm sure there's an element of luck. But that was such an interesting thing where business mastery really shifted me from reactive to you still understand that you can't always fully control your circumstances, but business mastery pulled out of me, you control how you show up. And so
100%.
one of the games I made up and I found it on the internet and I kind of made it my own with my nutrition clients is it's a teacup game. And I do
Mm,
have this in one of my cancer videos, which is I'll quickly paraphrase, but if life comes around and bumps you and coffee comes flying out of your mug, why did coffee come out of your mug? Well, because you put coffee in it, because someone bumped you. No, like life is going to rattle you. It's easy to fake it when it's like, smooth and easy. But when the going gets tough, whatever you have chosen to put inside of you is what is going to spill out. Had I put herbal tea in my cup, that's what would have come flying out. So you can't control the outside circumstances, but you can control your inside state, your inside quiet confidence in yourself. So the night before my cancer surgery, I was like, I need to pull this tool from my nutrition coaching toolbox. And I drew myself a blank teacup and I was like, things are going to get rough and scary. What has to come out of me in these next weeks, months, years? And I think I wrote down like courage, brave, like inspiration,
Mm.
love, positivity, joy. And I was like, when I get rattled, this is how I'm going to show up if I get bumped. If I'm told I'm not going to make it, this is how I'm going to live till my very last breath. And just knowing I had internal control of the way I was going to receive the news, respond to the news, take action in my life, that cool series of events started at
Mm.
Business Mastery of recognizing you can't always control the outside, but the inside part of you, you have control over. So that was one really big inflection
So
point.
good.
And another name I'll drop is not that well known. So I like to plug him because he should get a little more credit. He is a writer and his name is Derek Sivers. He used to own a really famous company in the late 90s and 2000s called CD Baby. And what it basically was, it was like Apple iTunes before Apple iTunes existed.
Mm.
So remember before PayPal existed with like checkouts to give people money online?
Right.
He basically taught himself how to code. So he was like an industry trendsetter. And he was just a musician who wanted to sell his CDs online. Like this didn't exist when he started his company. And then his friends came up to him and he's like, hey, like, can I just add my CD on your website since you figured
Mm.
out how to like take money and mail it? So he very much created an accidental company, but he did it by giving first. And I looked to him for inspiration for two reasons. That's how Prosper came to be. As I built this little internal system of making sure my team had all these metaphors and games and resources so my customers could have a really happy experience. And then quietly, people just started to go, could I have that access to that
Mm.
training? I think that would really benefit me. And so it was just done with the intention of giving first. It was never like, how do I make as much profit? How do I have an
Mm.
IPO? How do I like it was just like I
Right.
wanted to serve an unmet need in the gym community, which was I want stressed out gym owners and caring, passionate staff to be really well trained so your clients can have an amazing experience and get the transformational results they
Mm.
want. And I want them to stick around in your facility and have a great experience because that's all we wanted to do for the people who came to our gym. And I struck on something that works really well. And I've just sort of been sharing it, and it's been this very organic growth. But the thing about Derek Sivers is he is an excellent author. And you might have picked, you actually hinted at something that was a compliment to me. That's an inspiration from Derek Sivers. You're like, it was so useful, but no fluff. Like
Mm.
when we went through Prosper, it was so valuable and helpful with what we needed to know, but you didn't waste any extra words or modules just to have
Mhm.
filler. Derek, if you read any of his books, they're like a 45-minute to 2 hour read. His chapters are like 1 to 3 pages. And he's like, here's the topic. This is all I have to say on it. He's so thoughtful in the examples that
Mm.
he writes. And then he's like, okay, that's the chapter. I you got what you needed. I
That's
don't
good.
need to fluff it up.
Yep.
And he is very, very he's the most thoughtful author I've ever met who thinks about the reader's experience with his words. And I'm ridiculously customer obsessed. Like I think every little step of my client
Mm.
journey, how do I eliminate friction? How do I add elements of surprise and
Yeah.
delight and joy? And he's a very similar person. So I got a lot of inspiration from Derek Sivers on just being obsessed with your customer, but keeping it short, sweet, fun, and engaging. No fluff, no wasted, and no ego. Like he has the like smallest ego, even though he's
Mm.
very successful. And I've always just found him to be a really important role model. So
That's
those
good.
are two really different extremes, one really famous, one really not famous, but they really helped me as a business owner.
So what are some of his books?
Oh yes, so he has a whole series. The first one it is Anything You Want, and it's about being in the mindset of an entrepreneur. And the quick Coles notes of that is when you build a small business, you can build your own little castle. Not that you're like the demanding king, but
Right.
all the societal shoulds and the rules, you get to make the rules in your own little ecosystem.
Mm.
The
Yep.
whole 9 to 5 cubicle world doesn't exist when you've built a business.
Yep.
So I love that. He has another one called Hell Yeah or No, Hell Yes or No, which
Okay.
that he actually was the one who made that phrase really famous in his decision making. He has Your Music and People. Like I said, he used to be a musician, and it's
Okay.
all the business lessons and networking lessons he learned from being in the music industry that actually really shaped, because musicians just think about business a little differently. And he's like, business owners might actually do well to have just a full paradigm shift of seeing
Mm,
the world through the different lens, because we often get very like siloed.
yeah.
Gym owners think this way, business owners think this
Yeah.
way. And he's like, musicians think a lot differently. And he's like, I've been both a successful musician and a successful business owner. Here's where there's overlap, and here's where we don't see it the same way.
Mm,
But I took these views and applied them to business, and it went really well.
it's awesome.
And then he's currently writing another book at the moment on, I think it's like life lessons that don't like truths that don't seem true and untruths that actually are truth.
Okay.
That's not the title. I forget what it is, but
Sure.
it's being released very soon. And all his books are just so like, even just the texture of the cover, the size of it in your hand, he has made the whole experience so thoughtful. Like, he is such a good example of the client journey.
Mm,
Not a single detail is overlooked, but simple. I love his stuff. So,
awesome.
yeah,
Wow.
anything from Derek
Definitely.
Sivers, if you like to read, he's an
Yeah.
excellent author.
I'll definitely be checking him out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think last question, and I wanted to plug this in a little earlier, but we didn't get to it. But it is, at least in the States, this is kind of a difficult one, but we're being misled massively from our health authorities who are supposed to be teaching us and telling us how to stay healthy, right? For
Right.
example, if you go to the American Diabetics Association website, their
Yeah.
recommendation for a type 2 diabetic is oatmeal with brown sugar and orange juice, and not not exactly what I would recommend, right? And maybe as a dietitian you can speak to that, but to me it seems like an insulin dependency diet, and we've heard that, and it's scary because we're looking at a food pyramid that's 40% grains or whatever it is, and like, but these are the things that are being taught in schools though. So when you
Right.
go to school for nutrition, because the government is so involved in these things, there's so much influence there. I might come out thinking that people need to be eating a primarily carb grain diet, and like, how have you been able to or had to sort through some of that stuff? And obviously you're in Canada, but I wouldn't imagine it's that much different. What does that look like for you? Have you had to reteach yourself some things, or do you come out with different philosophies or have different philosophies now that maybe you didn't have coming out of school?
Absolutely. I'm going to grab a piece of paper and draw you a picture
Oh
and
yeah.
super simplify it with a diagram. One second.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, actually, that's so funny. My two tip Tuesday that I just wrote, that's going to be released very soon.
Yep.
So, my two tip Tuesday I just wrote, that's going to be released really soon, is the topic is called unlearning. The best coaches in the world, higher education teaches us learning is just putting more information into our brains. The
Okay.
wisest thinkers regularly evaluate that information, look at it under context to context, circumstance to circumstance. Oatmeal with orange juice and brown sugar. Would I recommend that diet? Yeah, maybe to my Olympic level rower who's a
Right.
male and 6'5" and needs to eat 4,800 calories a day as a base and goes through so much glycogen. That amount of sugar in his breakfast is absolutely the right breakfast.
Correct.
Someone that is overweight and sedentary and has an insulin dependent diabetes, probably not. So the best coaches in the world are really smart at learning information, thinking about that information and applying it context to context. And then also they update their brain and they edit out, or I call it unlearn. They unlearn things that are no longer appropriate or true, or times have changed. So I'm going to draw you something, and I'll use my words for anyone that's just driving along and listening. I call it the boob exercise. I
Nice.
apologize. You'll see why when you see the picture. And I'll put a heart as like a pasty because it used to look like a nipple. Okay.
Buckle up, guys.
That's
The
to be
boob
true.
exercise.
Can you
All
see the boob?
right. I
All
see
right.
it.
So we got our heart in the center, or like a nipple.
Yeah.
We've got an areola, smaller circle around it, and then we've got the whole big circle. Here is how I talk about when people get stressed out, they're usually doing something wrong with the boob. The heart is you. It is your intuition, your life experiences, your knowledge, that inner wisdom of like, what feels right, either for yourself or for someone that you are supporting and working with. Then the small circle around the little heart is the inner circle of trust. So, for instance, if I'm working with a nutrition client, this might be their family doctor, this might be a physiotherapist supporting an injury,
Mm.
this might be their significant other. Not everyone earns the right into the inner circle. For instance, their accountant might be really important in their financial decision making, but maybe their accountant on the carnivore diet is not in our inner circle to make nutrition decisions for this particular client.
Yep.
So you have to earn your right into the inner circle based on expertise, support, all of that, but you're not in everyone's inner circle. The big part of the boob, the big part of the circle is just noise. So when people get really frustrated, here's what I notice. And let's hold the teacup exercise, right? Like we focus on what's inside of us. People get frustrated. Government influences, big pharma, the spending from the grain and the dairy and the meat industries. You can get blue in the face and scream about that till the cows come home. Unless you want to take a job where you work in policy change in industry, you're just screaming and part of the outside noise. So what I just do is I go real quiet, and the whole outer part of the circle is not relevant in my decision making of how I coach a client. So I want to check in on where the client's at, what's their history, understanding their medical needs, looking at that mountain, where do I want to guide them? I might weigh in considerations like maybe their coach is letting me know that they're ramping up their training and they've got a triathlon coming up. Okay, that tells me important information from
Hmm.
someone in their trusted inner circle,
Yep.
what we need to do with their carbohydrates. But the rest of the time, essentially, I put a wall of fortress around the inner trusted circle and myself and the client, and everything else just pings in and pings right back out.
Mm.
Because I see so many nutrition professionals get on internet screaming matches, and at the end of the day, you all trolled each other and nothing changed.
Right.
Where I just am like head down, do the work with my client. And I think any good coach will have enough trust in themselves of their own learning, their own continuing education, their lived experience of coaching clients to be like, yeah, my instincts tell me that jacking up someone with diabetes on orange juice with no fiber, high amounts of brown sugar and oatmeal, and where's the protein and healthy fats, they're going to have a sluggish morning because they're going to go up and they're going to go down. So I'm going to try and experiment with the client of increasing the protein, decreasing the carb, having it be all whole foods, and let's just see how you feel.
Yep.
Now, whether the American Diabetic Association agrees with me or not, hey, you didn't earn the right to be in my inner circle. I'm
Mm.
not considering your counsel here.
Yep.
So that's how I really truly approach nutrition making for all different kinds of conditions and people is, and ultimately as a coach, I have to know if I'm in the wrong. Because if their heart center's like, I'm not willing to give up alcohol, and I'm like, you must give up alcohol, alcohol's bad, I'm fighting something that they're not ready to change.
Right.
So the inner circle is they're in control. What do they feel ready, willing, able?
Yep.
Then they have trusted counsel from a small select people who care about their goals. And then just ignore all the noise. Everything else is just noise.
So good. So in the book
Yeah,
that I have coming soon, it's talking about one of the chapters is all about programming and kind of how we got where we are now. And the big takeaway is really just to question everything and do that internal questioning where like,
right,
hey, does this resonate with you or does it not? And can
right,
you find facts in your own life to
right.
validate this? And
Yeah,
just critical thinking, right? Which we still have the ability to do. It hasn't been taken away. We still need to exercise that right to
yeah,
just think through this stuff. And when you can get clients to do that,
hmm
it works
right,
wonderfully just to do it on their own though. Instead of me as the coach thinking for them or telling them what they should be doing or why they should be
right.
doing or what study validates what I'm trying to say. It's like, hey, does this feel good to you? Like, is
Yeah,
this something that resonates with you that we can continue to do long term? And if
right,
so, well, then I know that's a place where we can focus. And if
right,
not, well, then we attack some other area. But
right,
yeah, I think that's so good because there's always going to be changing information. There's always going to be professionals on every side that will argue all the studies, and you want to get into all of that. Like you're right, it's just noise. It takes away from our ability to have the right
right.
amount of bandwidth to serve more people. So I love that approach.
Yeah, so whoever's the ultimate decision maker, they're the heart, and then they get to pick their trusted inner counsel. And inner counsel can change over time, right? Like
Mm.
maybe your midwife was the right trusted inner counsel when you're pregnant and having gestational diabetes, but 6 years out, probably that midwife isn't a major part of
Yep.
that conversation anymore because circumstances have changed. So our inner counsel is allowed to rotate, but the client or the person always gets to choose. And just like you said, question everything and ultimately ask yourself, at this stage of life, does this resonate with me? Does this feel like a good fit for me? And that's all I do as a coach is I ask a lot of questions in line with that. And then I'm like, cool, let's find you a game, a tool, a snack, a meal, a recipe that's going to support what's in line with where you want to be right now. And so just shush, like people are like, oh, have you read this study? Have you read this nutrition book? I'm like,
Right.
I read nutrition books the least of all the areas I
Yeah.
read and develop my mind. I do way more in behavior change coaching,
Yep.
psychology, way more in mindset, way more in like, consistency, sustainability, like more the habit is how do
Yep.
you help people be consistent? That's the ultimate habit. So I learn as much as I can on helping people find consistency and work through self-limiting the thoughts. Because if I can really get those two things, the consistency and the self-limiting beliefs, then you can plug and play any positive nutrition habit. It's not me reading the carnivore book or the vegan book or the next thing. I have to be aware of those things. I still keep
Right.
abreast of the trends, but I think my real skill as a coach, like you, is it's the head stuff.
Yep. And it's things like time management,
Yeah,
right? Like that no one really thinks about or talks about. Like, hey, I want to lose weight. Well, then you better learn how to manage your time. Well,
right.
what does that have to
Because
do
you
with
got to
weight
fit in
loss?
all these things.
Everything, right? If you're already stressed out and you already are overwhelmed and you already have too many things on your plate and you can't manage what you have, mainly because we're not very efficient, right? We don't plan our days, we don't block our time, all those things.
Right.
Well, then how are we going to add in one more thing? Learning how to
Right.
eat differently. And so it's like, you're right. I think it starts with the mindset. It starts with other daily habits that will give you space and a container to put in new skills and new habits like time management and some of these other things. And I just think that's what a good coach can offer, right? It's like when you hire a nutrition coach, one would think, well, I'm hiring them to teach me, as to your point, to give me a plan or to teach me how to eat. When really, in order for us to get there, we've got to build the foundation, right? We've got to look at what's your relationship to food. Do you have a perfectionist mentality? Are you an all or nothing type of person? Do you have some space in your calendar? Are you reactive or, to your point, proactive? All these things are huge, and I love the analogy with the high level athlete. I think that's perfect because, again, this thing takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes course correction. It's going to be clumsy in the beginning, and
Yep.
you need a coach to go, hey, like, just confirmation. Hey, no, this is part of the process.
Yeah.
You're supposed to learn, right? You're supposed to fail and learn, and like, these things are going to happen, and it's okay. Otherwise, we get discouraged and we throw in the towel and we're like, oh, this thing isn't working. So I think if you're listening to this from a perspective of, hey, I want to learn more about nutrition because this is a nutrition podcast. I think the biggest thing to walk away with here is that if you're starting your journey and you're trying to improve your health and you figured out that nutrition is a major part of that, it doesn't happen overnight. It's like developing any new skill of riding a bike or building a business or whatever. It's going to take trial and effort, and having a coach on your side that can see in front of you and help you avoid some of those pitfalls and help you maybe save you a little bit of pain and give you some direction is super valuable. And yeah, if that's at your disposal, I would highly recommend, whether it be one of us or another program, that you hire a coach, because this is something that it can be a lot if you don't have a path and you don't know even where to go. Like, imagine how overwhelming, Jen, if you didn't know anything about nutrition. Then you've just been like eating fast food every day and you've never even thought about, now all of a sudden you've got to start changing your diet. Like, where do you even start? Right.
Well,
So
it's like
overwhelming.
wanting to build a house and someone just drops all the materials off and they're like, go
Yes.
build your house. Or the contractor shows up and we're like, we are going to build your house. I've built many, many houses before.
Yeah.
Now you're going to help me with the hammering and the screwing and the drilling, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be laying out, hey, grab this 2x4. Hey, you need this special screw. How much better would
Yeah.
building your house go if you had that general contractor right there by your side, giving you sort of that next step where you're not like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this pile of housing material? I have no idea where to begin. And I think that's what most people do with nutrition, and it doesn't have to be so overwhelming for them.
No, absolutely. Well, hey, this has been awesome. I could do this all day. I love these
We'll
conversations.
have to do a part two.
Please, yes, let's do it. I appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm at prosper_NC. So that's for like Prosper Nutrition Coaching. But if you love games and metaphors, I actually have a few games and giveaways. So I always believe in leading with free stuff first and just offering a ton of value. So if you go to prospernutritioncoaching.com/liftoff, Liftoff is my mini nutrition masterclass that has that toothbrush analogy that Jay was hinting at, the iceberg of success, a few client nutrition coaching games, completely free. Even if you're not a coach, it's really fun to go through it just as a healthy eater. So you can download access to the masterclass that way. prospernutritioncoaching.com/liftoff.
Awesome. And I'll put all of her contacts inside of the show notes. So you guys will have these links. Jenn, thank you so much for your time. Keep
Thank
fighting the good
you.
fight. You're doing an amazing job. And I'm really glad to connect with you and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome. We'll see you.